So what I hope to do today is kind of myth bust a little bit, kind of look at what might be seen and what may come across as a HLTA course, and kind of what you should be looking for if you want to be qualified as a HLTA, because lots of courses have equivalency and you kind of don't want that. You want an accredited HLTA program. So what I'm going to do is just going to walk you through what you should expect. We're 1/3 of a national partner for a HLTA, which I'll go through in a minute. So my provider covers the East Midlands from Northampton all the way to kind of Lincolnshire, and we have partners in kind of Southampton and Yorkshire, etc. So we provide a HLTA across the country as a national partnership, and I'll give you access to the links as to what you might need if you wanted to enroll in one of our programs, if you are interested, or whether I can answer some of those questions for you. I am going to put it on full screen, but I won't be able to see the chat. So there will be an opportunity for you to answer a couple of questions. So I will pop in and out, but because I'm on full screen, I won't be able to see everything. So you will have to bear with me. This session is about the high level teacher assistant status, so HLTA. What is it and what is involved in that? So I know there's quite a few of you who want to know what could I expect to be in kind of engaging with and enroll in a program that allows me to be a qualified HLTA. So I'm hoping I can answer a number of different questions for you. So kind of a bit of housekeeping, I suppose, before I get started. I know some of you may be from kind of across the UK, etc. So I kind of just want to make sure that you're aware, really, that I can give you advice and guidance as to what to expect from gaining HLTA status and what a assessment process should look like. Different providers will do things slightly differently, but I can give you an idea about what an accredited HLTA status program from application to assessment may look like. However, I can only comment on what we do as a national partnership. So if you have any specific questions, I will try my best to answer them and try and signpost you to some authentic sources of information and try my absolute best to support you with that. So let's see how this works. I'm just going to pop this off now and hopefully this will work. So I've got 3 questions here. So we'll start with the first one. So as part of HLTA, you will need to lead a whole class teaching, and so you'll need to lead whole class teaching without the presence of a teacher. So if you think it's true, put true in the chat box. If you think it's false, put false in the chat box, and I'll try and myth bust for you. So what do you think it is? Do you think it's true or false? Okay. Okay, so in order to get an accredited HLTA, so one of the standards for HLTA is leading whole class teaching as part of standard 31. So what you would need to do is showcase that you can lead a whole class without a teacher present. And that involves, as part of the evidence gathering process, you would not be able to have any kind of observation or witness statement to support your whole class teach, because that would suggest someone was there observing you when that happened. So this is very much aligned with standard 31. So just bear that in mind, but absolutely, I think someone says very true in capital letters. That's absolutely welcome. So well done. So question number 2, to successfully complete the HLTA course, you will need to meet how many of the standards? 70%, 90%, or 100%? What do you think? You guys are on fire this evening. Well done. So you, as you may know or as you may not know, there are 33 HLTA standards that have been agreed since 2003. So you would have to meet all 33 HLTA standards. So as long as you're aware of that. So fantastic. Well done. So nobody put anything else. So that's good. That's really promising. So the final question before I get into the nitty-gritty of things, you will be observed as part of your assessment process. If it's true, put true. If you think it's false, put false. That's really interesting. So as part of the actual assessment process, so you'll usually be assessed via an interview. So you wouldn't necessarily be observed. So no one will be observed. So no one should be observing you teaching as part of the assessment process. You might be observed. You might have an observation of your teaching as part of potentially gathering documentary evidence for another standard, but you wouldn't necessarily be observed as part of your assessment. So if you are expected to be observed, I would definitely question that, because you shouldn't really be observed as part of the HLTA assessment itself. And I'll talk you through the process a little bit later on. But typically speaking, you'll have an application, you'll submit that to your provider. You'll then have it kind of scrutinized. You'll then take part in preparation sessions. You'll then be put forward towards a submission or task, which I'll go through a little bit later. And then you'll be assessed via an assessed interview or a one-to-one assessment with your evidence, your task in front of you. And there'll be a number of different professionals involved in that. So if you, at no point should you be observed as part of the formal assessment for HLTA in terms of aligning you and your practice to the 33 standards. So that's really interesting. So maybe take that on board. And if you want me to go into a little bit more detail for you, by all means, let me know at the end and I can definitely help you with that. So let's go into the full screen then. So HLTA, so just to give you a little bit of background, I suppose. So HLTA has been in place since 2003 as part of a trial in 2003 by the old TDA, the Training Development Agency, and more recently DFE. And it was funded by the DFE. So if you wanted to embark on a HLTA program, you would have had full funding, but that was unfortunately cut in September 2012. So that means there was more onus on schools to support colleagues to go through the HLTA status programme. So we are part of a national partnership called HNAP. So us, so the University of Northampton, we also have HLTA North, and we have Strictly Education. So Strictly Education covers the south of the country. HLTA North naturally covers the north of the country, and we cover the eastern region. So we formed in 2012, and we came to a national agreement around in that we wanted to provide a standardized but quality experience for those enrolling on our programs, and therefore we have gained national recognition for the work that we do. So if anyone has a HLTA qualification from us, i.e. the status, it generally comes with a little bit of it has a reputation. If you have a HLTA status from a HNAP partner, it tends to come with a little bit of accreditation with it, and that little bit of reputation, I suppose. So actually the HLTA program, we've been, as a university, we've been offering HLTA since its trial in 2003. My colleague in the HLTA office has been in office and has been the administrator for HLTA since its inception in 2003. So that's been really, really useful to see it evolve over time. But typically speaking, when we look at applications, we tend to look at how schools are going to be sponsoring colleagues to take part in one of our programs. So the DFE statement for HLTA status from 2012 generally suggests that HLTAs work alongside teachers, providing valuable support for teaching and learning activities. HLTAs work right across the curriculum, acting as specialist assistants for specific subjects or departments, helping to plan lessons and develop and support materials. They work closely with teachers, complementing their role and freeing them up to have more time to develop each pupil to his or her potential. So the introduction of academies has kind of made this a little bit more fluid, I suppose, because we've seen, particularly over the course of the pandemic, we've seen the likes of teaching assistants acting as class teachers. Whereas before then, so maybe 10 years ago, that would have been quite unthinkable, really. So some of you who are present here this evening, you might have extensive experience covering classes in the absence of a teacher, whether they are on a course, or whether they're on long-term sick, or covering PPA. But before then, that wasn't really the case. And, you know, multi-academy trusts have really introduced that role. So this statement here could be seen as really out of date, actually, because a number of the number of responsibilities put on HLTAs is quite significant since then, and this is written about 11 years ago. So the DFE really recognizing and really harnesses and shows a lot of respect for HLTA, but equally you could argue if they respected it, there would be still funding there. But sponsoring and kind of numbers for HLTA hasn't really dwindled over that time, interestingly. There's still a lot of interest and there's still a lot of demand for us. I mean, just take an example for our September cohort for us as a university, we've already started taking applications and it's May time. And, you know, we're expecting a big surge again in August. So it really has shown that despite the lack of withdrawal, there's still a need for HLTAs in schools, and schools really need them to cover those holes and really give you an opportunity to have a taste of what whole class teaching is all about. So general entry requirements, I mean, I can only talk about what we do, as I said at the top of this evening's session, but these are very generic to us, but obviously different providers will have a certain aspect of that. So standard 11 will be kind of talks about the need to have a level 2 maths and English, and what we do as part of the application process is that if a candidate can evidence the fact that they have a maths and English qualification, they've already met it upon application. So there's only 32 standards to claim, in fact, and that should be pretty much universal across the country, actually. So there's lots of equivalencies in maths and English. So we expect GCSE level 4, there's basic skills, functional skills, etc. There's lots of issues in terms of accessing kind of original certificates. So what we do as universities is that we offer entry tests, and that's fairly common across all kind of HLTA providers as well. So when I talk about entry tests, if you are lacking a certificate in any way, your provider could offer you an entry test where you could just provide competencies in core level 2 maths and English skills, and that's then marked, and that would then give you access to a HLTA qualification. In terms of accessing a HLTA program, should I say. So it's not seen as an equivalent maths and English qualification, but it's a competency test that allows you to access a HLTA program. So that's what we do as university, but those are typically the entry requirements, and you'll see that on any kind of website, depending on where you're looking at. I've got some useful links for you later if you wanted to access them. So there are 33 professional standards that you need to meet in order to achieve HLTA status, and they cover the following areas. So you have standards 1 to 7, which are the kind of professional attributes, and then you have standard 8 to 22, which is knowledge and understanding, and then 23 to 33, which is your kind of professional skills. So we talk about your area of expertise. We look at how you appreciate equality and diversity, having high expectations, how you dictate the role of another colleague within the classroom potentially. So there's a number of different statuses that a number of different standards that you would need to cover and evidence consequently through both written work and documentary evidence gathering. There's lots of useful documents on Twinkl, I noticed, through kind of the Facebook group, etc., that would be quite useful for you to access that. But you need to evidence all of them through both written work and documentary evidence gathering, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions about that if you had any queries. So the assessment process is generally taken up like this. So what we do is that we have 8 written tasks that are submitted. 3 of the tasks are about how you support one-to-one teaching, small group teaching, and whole class teaching without the teacher present. And then consequently, you would gather 2 pieces of evidence per standard. So for example, if you were going to support standard 31, which is around whole class teaching, you might provide a lesson plan, which is annotated, which allows the assessor to look at what you've done and how you have advanced learning, because that is the key term for that standard. And then another piece of evidence might be a piece of work that that child has created as a result of that teaching, and that would be the 2 pieces of evidence that you would then contribute to that standard. And we typically, as a rule of thumb, ask for 2 pieces of evidence per standard, so you're looking at roughly 64 pieces of evidence over that time. I've just finished actually preparing, so we do 6 preparation sessions at 2.5 hours each, and my current cohort, they are on a 4-week break to gather and draft 4 written tasks and collect some documentary evidence to share with me in the middle of June. I'm due to see them again on the 19th of June. And they're going to show me what they've done over that time as a result of 4 sessions of preparation. And as a result of that, they do feel that they're ready to start drafting now, which is very common. Obviously, it's very nerve-wracking producing something, particularly if you've been absent from education for a while. But the whole process is scaffolded appropriately. In terms of the assessment process, now the second I say assessment, people might think, oh God, I don't come across very well in assessments, and that's perfectly normal. But what we talk about as a provider is that we talk about it, and this is a part of our national agreement as well, is that we see it more as a supportive process. So we're never there to catch you out. We're never there to think what this person isn't doing. We talk about what you are doing and kind of building upon that, I suppose. So what we do is that your written tasks and your documentary evidence are given to an assessor. They will then scrutinise them, and then they will take part in 4 interviews. So what 2 interviews are with you as the candidate. The other interview is with your class teacher, and then another interview is with the head teacher or a nominated person in place of a head teacher, because we understand that head teachers are very busy. And this typically takes place as a half-day visit. We do it online now. Pre-pandemic used to be face-to-face. We used to go over to Lincoln, Derby, etc. as part of an East Midlands provider. But now we do them all online, and that's worked really well, actually. But this typically takes about half a day. So I typically take 9 till 12 or 1 till 4. It's usually most of the morning or most of the afternoon. And one of the biggest challenges you'll find, actually, because we ask you to find a quiet space in the school, which is very difficult to come across, as you can imagine, because there's children everywhere. But we ask for, it's very common as part of the assessment process that we have the head covering you as what you would normally do as part of the teaching process. One person would leave the interview, another person would come in, and the covering process is a rolling reel, I suppose, of people. But we do make it work, and with enough notice, I know schools like dates and notice, etc., it does work really well. So that typically tends to be the whole process. And that process is supported via admin staff who work as part of the HLTA team, but also as part of your preparer. So I'd be a preparer, and as part of your assessor as well. So your assessor will be allocated to you, and they can support you through the assessment process. So an example of what to expect from HLTA preparation sessions. So you have 6 2.5-hour sessions that are online. We do them online as well. We sometimes do face-to-face if there's a demand. So sometimes we might have a trust approach us that we have done in the last week or so, and they said, right, we've got a substantial amount of staff who need upskilling. Could you provide some face-to-face training? And we would try and accommodate that. But typically you'll have 6 2.5-hour sessions. They must all be attended. If you miss one, then that means we won't be able to put you forward for assessment. So we really stress that all of them need to be attended. So week 1, you might have 5 hours split across 2 days. So you might have 2.5 hours on a Monday and 2.5 hours on a Tuesday. That is then repeated the following week. And then you have probably about a 5-week break, and then you do your sessions 5 and 6, which are split across 1 week. So you might have your session 5 on a Tuesday, session 5 on a Thursday, and then you submit your tasks roughly 4 or 5 weeks later. So your online assessment includes those 4 meetings, as I said. Typically speaking, what you'll find is that and I know for a lot of people, particularly for parents as well, who are trying to juggle a number of different priorities, they're probably thinking, how much time do I need to commit to a programme that would give me HLTA status? So I would generally recommend 2.5 hours, 2 to 4 hours a week, dedicated study to writing up your task, gathering documentary evidence to support your claims for all 33 standards. And typically speaking, from application to completed assessment and moderation. So we go through a monthly moderation cycle, which, as you can imagine, is very exciting for me as the project manager for the programme. From application to moderation, you're looking at roughly 6 months. And that's for any kind of provider. If it's any quicker than that, then I'd probably question that. Some people might do it intensively, but then again, that might feel quite rushed, and a lot of people like to take their time and develop quality tasks. And I know for some providers, they really suggest that you start citing information and you write long essays, and that's not really how we do things, but other providers will do it slightly differently. Typically speaking, you would need to be employed by your school, and your school should be supportive, and they should understand what is involved in the process of HLTA. We cover that as part of the admin process. And they should be supportive of you in terms of understanding what you are doing. So we would ask your nominated people who are part of the HLTA programme, the HLTA assessment process, that they understand what you've written, what you've submitted, because you may well be asked about it, and you don't want to put that person in a difficult situation. If you are on a temporary agency contract, that can provide some issues, mainly because you may well be in a school at the start of the assessment process, and then you could be quickly told you have a week's notice to leave, or even less than that, because the cover's in place, or you're not needed, or it can be quite cutthroat in a number of places, unfortunately. But that can lead to a number of practical issues in terms of you've been put in a difficult situation financially, because obviously it's not cheap to do a quality HLTA programme. But also you could be halfway through it and you never finish it, and that leaves both the provider and you in a difficult situation. So it's definitely worth bearing in mind, and you should definitely be employed in a school. It can be on a fractional contract potentially, but typically speaking you should be employed by the school and not by an agency if you can help it. So there are a number of reasons to take on a HLTA qualification. Some of you may be thinking, I have no plans on becoming a full class teacher, but I do like the idea of dipping my toe in a bit of teaching. And teaching, and I've been teaching since 2017, is the most joyous process in the world. And it is the most joyful job in the world. And if I could bottle up that joy in some way, I'd be a very rich man. And I probably would still be doing this role in one way or another. But it develops confidence, self-esteem. It kind of cements your ability to do the job, because the whole HLTA process and the assessment process is about appraising what you do well, and a number of the things that you probably take for granted. And it's about really thinking about and reflecting on your practice, which, as I know, having worked in a school for a while, it can be very difficult to think about your practice because school days are so busy. And particularly in the last week or so, in the last 2 weeks actually, because it was just over a week ago that SATS was around, and obviously you were pulled from pillar to post, I imagine, for those of you in primary education. But we provide a nationally recognised professional status. As I said earlier, it provides an opportunity to extend your role and responsibilities. It empowers you to think about your area of expertise. We think about area of expertise quite a lot as part of HLTA, whether that is kind of supporting children who are neurodivergent. So that may be a number of different examples you can think of. Maybe a specialist in phonics, maybe DT. I've had a photography specialism very recently, because we have staff coming from secondary education. So they do that. It can be recognised by some higher education institutions. We certainly do this as a provider. That will contribute to you not sitting certain modules if you wanted to come and do a degree. We run a foundation degree in a BA programme, which is day release and it's full time. So that can be very lucrative for people who are looking to balance a number of different priorities, but also try and access higher education that allows them to fulfill their ambitions. It can lead to better job security, and it can support progression to becoming a teacher if that's the direction you wanted to go in. So there's a number of different reasons really. And if you wanted to bounce some ideas in the chat, maybe I'm more than welcome to bounce some ideas away from you. But those are some really good examples. And these are actually featured as part of our feedback process that we collate at the end of the preparation process. So what we do is that we ask our HLTAs what is the HLTA process and assessment allowed them to access, and these are some of the things that they come up with. So this is really harnessed by our candidate voice. So some of the examples of progression routes. So we've had HLTAs become subject coordinators, we've had PPA cover, we've had team leaders, we've had extended school coordinators, which is a lot of my background as well. I've currently got a candidate who's a forest school leader, and they're looking to really be employed in that as a full-time basis, because currently she's doing that on a fractional basis. We've got IT specialists, we've got EAL specialists, we've got behaviour and attendance specialists. It really does allow you to become a specialist in your practice, mainly because the area of expertise aspect. And it allows you to think about what are you good at and what do you really see yourself doing every day. And the HLTA program allows you to really take some thought into that. What would you see your area of expertise as? What is your specialism? What does your school see you as a specialist in? You know, and we think about how you can evidence that too. There's a number of different examples actually. So this is a bit I really wanted to cover really before I open the floor over to you really. But as a provider, we charge £800 for both the assessment and preparation. So for some of you, you might think, oh blimey, that's really expensive. And I totally understand that. We are going through a very difficult time at the moment. This is fairly typical of any provider offering a HLTA program. You're looking at between £600 to £800 for a HLTA status program. Other providers may charge the assessment and preparation separately, which is fairly common. So some of you may have the evidence and you just want to go through the assessment process because you've gone through another provider potentially. But we do both of them because we typically don't accept someone who's just done the preparation. We tend to do both of them. Just a kind of a word of warning, I suppose, and something to really ask yourself is, there's lots of qualifications online, and I did a quick search as I was preparing for this evening about what qualifications there are online which can qualify you as a HLTA, and actually there's quite a few of them that will say HLTA equivalents. This will allow you to practice as a level 4, which is equivalent to any quality HLTA status. How I word it is that it's kind of like level 3.5. So you've got a level 3 qualification, you might have done a cash diploma potentially, or STLS or anything like that. You want to really question the provider about, do you get HLTA status? That's the question you need to ask. Contact your providers and ask them, do I get HLTA status? Because being equivalent to HLTA and actually getting HLTA status is very different. So please feel free to interrogate your providers. I know that we do, and we've done this since 2003. We're going into our 20th year of providing this status now. But this is something you need to ask yourself. So if you see maybe a kind of a level 4 certificate, so any full level 4 would be a level 4 diploma. So that's what I mean. If you're doing a level 4 certificate, that would typically be a level 3.5 really. But ask them that. Do you get HLTA status at the end? Do you get an accredited HLTA status, and how do you know that? If it's not clear on the website, it's a fair indicator about actually whether this is an appropriate course for you. And the link I'm going to give you later will give you an example about how providers should be offering you HLTA status and how you know what you're signing up for. So that's definitely worthwhile asking yourself. So what I've got here is and hopefully this will work, but you'll see here on here, this link here, which is if you're in the UK, find yourself a local HNAP provider, you'll be able to click on this website here. Let me see if I can put this in the chat for you, actually, if you can't click on it on here. 1 second. There you go. So that status, that website there will tell you where your local provider is. So if you're not in the East Midlands, so if you're not in Northampton, Bedfordshire, Lincolnshire, Derby, etc., you might have a HNAP provider, or you will have a HNAP provider, I should say, in Southampton, for example, or if you are up north, maybe if you're kind of in Yorkshire area, HLTA North would be your national HLTA provider within our national partnership. So that would be a good kind of access point for you. If you wanted to access our website in terms of what a typical HLTA program should look like in terms of entry requirements and costs, etc., this link here is a link to our website, which I update pretty much every other. Oh, sorry, that's not what you want. Bear with me a second. That's our website, which I update pretty much every 2 months because I have to update cohorts all the time. So that's our website. And if you wanted a kind of summary of what to expect from kind of TA progression, HLTA, etc., Twinkl have done a really good kind of article for you. That might be of use to you. So those are a couple of links that might be useful, but the HNAP provider link would be really useful because actually you all will have a HNAP provider, which is something we're really proud of, is that we cover the whole of the UK. Outside of the UK, unfortunately, we can't cater for, but you will have other providers, I'm sure. But hopefully this will act as a template for you because, as I said, we've been doing this for a while now. So I'm going to open this over to the floor. I understand it's a lot of verbal diarrhea. I do apologise, but I'm just really conscious that you want the information you need. If you wanted to follow me on Twitter, my kind of Twitter handle is there, ASChapman91. And HLTA URN is our Twitter and Instagram handle. So if you wanted to follow us, you're more than welcome to. I'm hoping that was useful. I understand I probably spoke a lot and I'm going to need a drink of water now, but I'm hoping that was useful for you. And I'm quite happy to answer any questions if you have any. I'm hoping that was useful. Thank you for your time and thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was really, really thorough and really, really good. So thank you so much for your time. I think we've got a few questions that have come up in the chat.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you are employed as a TA and gain an accredited HLTA status, will schools then expect you to provide cover for teachers at short notice?
Only if you're employed in that capacity. So you'd need to check the conditions of your contract. If you're employed as a HLTA, that's different. But if you're employed as a TA, typically speaking, you should check what your roles and responsibilities are. And if you are expected to cover, then that's typically the role of a HLTA. But I understand multi-academy trusts can be flexible with that. If you are a local authority school, then typically that won't happen. But the introduction of MATs has made that very lucid, unfortunately. So it really is dependent on them. I would have had a very certain answer 10 years ago, not so much now.
It's very subject to school. I think we're finding that with all things TA and HLTA, aren't we? It's
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, next one. This is from someone who is currently working in a one-to-one SEN role. Do you need any TA qualifications, level 2 or level 3, to move on to HLTA status? And do you need to be in a general TA role to allow you to complete the status?
So could you repeat the first part of that question again? You broke up a little bit just then.
Sorry. Do you need any TA qualifications, level 2 or level 3, to move on to HLTA status?
Typically, no. I know that what we look for is the Maths and English qualification, because that's standard 11. So we would ask for that. If you have a TA qualification, then amazing. That would definitely give you a head start in terms of the written element of it. In terms of I've completely forgot the second half of that now. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Do you need to be in a general TA role to allow you?
You do. You do.
Because
you do.
They're currently in a one-to-one SEN role. So.
Okay, that's fine. But you would need to evidence whole class teach. So what we also ask is that you'd have experience of whole class teaching of at least 6 months of experience. So if you haven't got 6 months experience whole class teaching, you'd find it very difficult to evidence standard 31. So if you are looking to access HLTA, ask your school whether you can have, a frequent slot every now and then where maybe of a week where you have 1 or 2 slots a week where you whole class teach without the teacher present, because without that you wouldn't be accepted on a typical HLTA program, because standard 31 is so important. I mean, you'd be presented with one of the tasks and you wouldn't know what to write because you haven't got the experience. So if you're interested in it, definitely ask your school to see if you can get the experience. And once you get some experience, definitely then reach out to your HLTA provider and they will definitely help you out with that.
Would you say that's key, getting your head teacher to be okay with you doing HLTA status?
Without it, it's very difficult. So without that support, the whole process will just be awkward for you, because the assessment process will be very disjointed. The heads won't really know what you're doing. I've had head teachers not look at any task before, and the assessment process has been really difficult. And if anything, it puts you at a disadvantage. So your head being on side, we actually ask the heads to provide a supporting statement on our applications, so we can see that the head has read it, they know what's expected. So there's no nasty surprises when they're being asked twice a week to come out, because our sessions are run during the day. So we typically do 12:30 till 3. And obviously that's a lot of time on a school day to be absent. So they need to be aware of what you're expected to do.
Brilliant, thank you. Somebody's also asked, is evening study available?
In some providers, maybe, but not. I know that we don't. Evening providers, it might be worth just looking at what's available, but typically speaking, you'll find a lot of them are daytime, and you'd be expected to be released a handful of hours a week just to enable you to sit the preparation sessions. Some may do that outside of our national agreement, but I know that we tend to do daytime preparation.
Thank you. Okay, next one is, how many hours whole class teaching would you need to cover per week?
There's no set amount, but what we look for is the experience and the consistency of that whole class teaching. So if you've managed to get, for example, I know for some of our candidates, they'll have a whole day on a Friday to cover, because they've got, so one of my candidates, for example, her class teacher who she's allocated to, their job share. So on a Friday, then neither of them are available because of fractional contracts, or that's their PPA day. So they'll have the whole of Friday to themselves, and that'll be really consistent. So after they've done 6 months, they they'll be in a position to reflect on things to engage within their tasks. We typically, in an ideal world, I would say 12 months consistent whole class teaching is amazing, minimum 6 months, because that will give you more to talk about. But it depends on how eager you are. But any kind of provider that we advise appropriately, if someone's too early in applying to us, then we'll tell them you're here too early. I would suggest you wait a couple of months.
Okay, thank you. Another question we've got is, I am employed as an unqualified HLTA and I do the role, but with no formal training. Could I get another job as a HLTA in another school without the qualification?
Multi-academy trusts can. They kind of make up the rules, I suppose. In a local authority school, you'd struggle. In a multi-academy trust, you may well do that. But you'll probably find that after a while, so what we tend to have within our candidates is that they'll tell me they're in a bit of a rut. They're doing things in a very similar way. They need to find a different way of doing things. So therefore, the HLTA program will allow them to do that. But obviously, I would imagine, and having spoken to a number of candidates over the last 2 years, it's featured on their appraisals that they may have, that to get HLTA status is important. Mainly because also if you have an Ofsted inspection, and governors more so, they would like to know who is qualified as HLTA and who isn't. So that's worthwhile just bearing in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. This is quite a good question. Does it have to be a class of 30 or can it be an SEN class of 6?
Yeah, it can be both. So we've got quite a lot of SEN specialists in our current cohort. A whole class teach might be 6, small groups might be 2, one-to-one will obviously be one-to-one. So there's no set number. We are very much dependent, and we ask our candidates to be transparent about what is a whole class teach for them. Because naturally, if you're in a village school, for example, I assess someone in a village school in March, and whole class for them is 15. So it's very much dependent on where you work.
Real, thank you. Okay, another one. We've got so many questions. I did a BTEC diploma in childhood studies, equivalent to 2.5 levels. And someone on another group mentioned that this was enough to give you a HLTA status. But I was always under the impression that I needed another qualification. Yeah,
so a BTEC, I know BTECs can be level 4 sometimes too. So it's really dependent. I don't know if it's a level 3 or not, or level 4. It's very difficult to know. But I would suggest that if you've got a BTEC that doesn't carry HLTA status with it, then you would be an unqualified HLTA. It's the status you're after. If you are seen as equivalent and you're being paid as such, then obviously that's up to you, and that's up to your school. And obviously Matt's has put a caveat into that, I suppose. But yeah, I would definitely look at who can provide you with that kind of updated training as to what is an accredited HLTA, what would be expected from you, and kind of think about the content. If you've already got a BTEC, I would imagine the information is transferable, and you would find the content quite okay, particularly with a practical experience we more so look at. But yeah, it's the status you're after.
Yeah. We've got 2 that are quite similar. So we've got one that says, I have a PGCE, but not QTS. Can I be employed as a HLTA now, or do I need to do the course? And there's another one that says, I already have a BA Hons in education and training. Is it still worth completing the HLTA status program?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I've taught HLTA candidates with degrees before. My first ever cohort, I had someone with a master's degree in it. So if you've got a degree or anything like that, it's definitely worthwhile doing.
Brilliant, thank you. Next one, I've just started with a HLTA course with CTC College. It's recognised by Ofsted. Now I'm concerned if it's the correct one.
As I said earlier, just ask them, do you get HLTA status at the end? And hopefully that's clear on the website. But ask your tutors at the end of the process, do you get a HLTA status qualification at the end? If you get the whole kind of equivalent, etc., then maybe think about it. But that should be if you look on our website as an example, it's fairly clear as a HLTA status program. So use that as a template to model that. But ask them. That's what you're there for. You know, you've paid for that process. See what you're going to get out of it. You know, it's an investment. It's a two-way thing, isn't it? So definitely ask them.
Okay, last one about whether it's the right qualification or not. If you already have a level 6 qualification, would you still be able to do a HLTA qualification? I suppose you've sort of answered that already.
Yeah. So most cohorts I prepare and even assess, actually, most of them have got at least a handful of them with a degree anyway, mainly because those with degrees tend to have so if you've got a degree, you tend to be quite favourable in terms of having a kind of a unqualified teacher role. Having the HLTA status on top of it is useful. And if you've already done a degree, I don't think you'd find it challenging. It's still a lot of paperwork and it's still hard work, but a lot of the content, as I said, will be transferable.
Okay. And another question we've got about the course itself: are there given task subject specific? Are the given task subject specific? Sorry.
No, not necessarily. So 3 tasks have to be a one-to-one, a small group, and a whole class teach. You then have 4 other tasks where you could draw from other examples where you have taught whole classes before, a one-to-one or a small group. It could be about any session, or it might be one typically tends to be about your area of expertise. It doesn't have to be about maths all the time. If anything, it would make it quite it would be quite, dare I say it would be quite mundane to read if it's about maths or phonics all the time. We do encourage our candidates to jazz it up a bit and talk about a number of different examples across all 8 tasks. As you can imagine, it's quite a lot to take on for an assessor, so try and jazz it up if you can.
Okay, I've got another question come. How long does the course take in total on average?
A typical HLTA status program from application to assessment typically takes about 6 months.
Okay. And just somebody asking for clarification: do I have to do HLTA course if I already have a PGCE but not QTS to be employed as a HLTA?
You could probably get a HLTA role, but you wouldn't have HLTA status. So, but ultimately, it's very difficult. You wouldn't have HLTA status, but it's up to the discretion of the school, really. Yeah, as I said, I've had students with master's degree master's degrees in education, and HLTA status is required for them to do the job, particularly from an Ofsted perspective. They would ask for you to be a qualified HLTA. So I'm hoping that answers your question, but typically you would need to. But as I said, I don't think you'd find the content challenging, but the development of the tasks and everything else is still as what you would expect from any kind of rigorous process.
Yeah. We've got another one about where they're based. I work in primary. Could I use experience from EYFS to year 6?
Yes. Yeah, so all of your tasks would typically be around one scenario, so not loads of scenarios in one task. So if one of your tasks is about you covering in EYFS, which again, that skill in itself to teach from EYFS to year 6 is a huge skill to have. You know, if you put a year 6 teacher in EYFS, they might combust. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It should be per task. There should be one example per task, so you could absolutely do that if you really wanted to. Yeah,
and a lot of HLTAs are based all over primary schools, aren't they, as well? So it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, most teachers couldn't do that. So, you know, it's a great skill to have, and that's why it should be recognised, and that's why the status is really useful.
Definitely. And another one about where they can find out details. So you mentioned that you had different regions. I'm in Hampshire. Where would I go to look for details?
You would be, I imagine, Strictly Education would be your provider. So if you go into the HLTA.org link, which I provided earlier, they will be your local provider as part of our national partnerships. If you wanted to search up them, you're more than welcome. They're called Strictly Education. And then if you wanted to cover them, if you wanted to access them, just click on the link and it will send you the contact information you need, and hopefully you'll be able to start that process, and it'll be very exciting for you.
Amazing, thank you. We've got another question about Wales. I know you said that you're all about England based, but somebody's asked, how do I find the HLTA course in Wales, and what provider covers Wales?
Again, I would probably use our website, particularly our national partners and our university website, as a template, and try to look for what model, what looks very similar. And what you're looking for is, ask them, do I get HLTA status at the end? It's very difficult for me to know exactly, because I don't know that, and I know the education is ever so slightly different. But it's definitely worthwhile asking them. So have a look and use that model, and hopefully that should help you. But ask them, you know, do I get HLTA status? You know, can you tell me how you go about providing that? And there should be a standard, you know, look at the 33 standards. Are they visible on the website? Is there an assessment process there? Is the price aligned with most of the providers that I've mentioned today? That's what you should be asking. Just ask lots of questions before you sign up to anything.